Fly me to the moon and let me play amongst the stars. Take it away, Grabs. No,
Shit!
no.
Hold on. I was getting into the song, and then I was like, yeah, we're talking about Ava, and then I spaced on lyrics, so I fucked it up. I'm sorry. I can't carry a tune or anything to save my life. Musically inept.
It's fine. It's okay. You
Oops.
took it away. Took it away in your own unique way, and that's the point.
I took it away and I fucking fumbled the ball. That's what happened. There was no touchdown. Anyway, okay. Hi, and welcome to another episode of In the Den. This is our third series that we're discussing after, a year and change.
Hell yeah.
So that's cool. And yeah, getting into, I guess, what I hope to be a sort of like array of shorter stuff. The idea being to get a bit more variety, because the whole thing is like we can just talk about whatever we want. So let's just throw in, talk about some video games, or a cartoon, maybe a comic book, stuff, other mediums, other things that we're not as familiar with, I guess. Which in this case, this isn't. The big difference with this one is it's an anime instead of a 70-volume manga or a 26-volume light novel series. And it's also and so that's a little different, but it is still one we both have familiarity with. One step at a time. So we watched Evangelion and End of Evangelion, the original TV series, and its then finale movie, which is now technically not a finale movie because of the rebuilds.
Yep.
But anyway. So before we get into that discussion, no comments, because we'll talk about the Mushoku Tensei comments on whenever we do the next Mushoku Tensei discussion.
Mm-hmm.
Usually how I'd like to start off is what is our respective personal history? Because as far as spoilers go, you have not seen the rebuilds, right?
No, not at all. I've seen the most I've seen of the rebuilds is literally, I don't even think I've seen a clip of any of the rebuilds. I might have seen one. I feel like I've seen Asuka being animated in one of the rebuild films, but that probably was a GIF, not even like the actual clip. I've seen a lot of images and GIFs, and but that's the extent of
obviously it's like digital instead of cell, so like the colors are different, like it looks different, but you have no real experience with the rebuilds. Okay, noted. Because for me is, so I this is the fourth time I've seen Evangelion. Because I watched it in 2012 when I got into anime, because I'd been sort of like anime adjacent for a while, and it's been a popular and well-discussed show for, 30 years now. So I was aware of it, and then I watched it, and I was like, what the fuck did I just watch? And then I was like, oh, there's a sequel. I watched it. What the fuck did I just watch? The funny thing about that day is I also decided, as a chaser, for some reason, I decided to watch the movie Barefoot Gen, which is about the Hiroshima bombing. So it's like, what was I thinking? That's not a great chaser. I did not sleep well that night. The second time I rewatched it, I kind of forgot about, but I remembered because what I tried to do is, so there's a watch order for Ava where you because there's a part in End of Ava where basically human instrumentality happens, and it's the way it's the conversation and dialogue and scene is generally structured is reminiscent of episodes 25 and 26 of the series. So it's like you watch episode 24, then you watch like most of End of Ava, and then you get to that part, and then you watch 25 and 26. I tried to do that, but it got fucked up because this was around Christmas, and I'd given my parents The Wire. It's because I like the show, and I was like, I'll just buy the show, and then this will be their Christmas present. So then, maybe, and they started watching it, and I was in the room with them on my laptop, and they were watching The Wire, and I kept getting distracted because The Wire is a good show, and Evangelion's also a good show, but I was kind of like torn between, like, so it kind of distracted me. So I kind of forgot about that watch through until like, I thought about it. I was like, oh yeah, I did watch it again. And then the third time I watched it in 2018 when I started my favorites anime rewatch, which is kind of the reason I brought it up in the first place. And then like 3 people were like, I want to rewatch it so I can listen to this discussion. And I'm like, oh, well, I'm learning Japanese now. So part of me is like, I want to watch less anime, but also, I guess we have to watch at least Ava. But in 2018, I liked it, but not as much because it'd been so many years since I saw it, and I'd seen so many different anime, but for some reason it didn't click with me. The big part of the reason I wanted to rewatch it, even though I technically already rewatched it as part of my anime favorites rewatch, is the first thing that happened is literally the day I finished End of Ava, I went onto one of my roleplay sites and I found an interest check with someone wanting to do an Evangelion roleplay, and it still to this day is a play-by-post roleplay, which it's just like collaborative storytelling in a text-based format. No dice or anything, like a tabletop role play, just two guys telling a story. And we clicked really well, and we wrote what is to date like still my favorite role playing experience. And the character I created in particular, I'm really fond of, and have literally been trying to find a way to tell her story because that game died. So like I've now engaged with Evangelion in a creative way, with like drawing from it, but also transforming elements into our own work. And it was a good time. And then the second thing that happened is I watched the Rebuild movies, and the first three are good. The fourth one I liked a lot. It fucked me up. I made it. I think it was just one of my favorite experiences watching a movie, and I think that when rewatching Evangelion this time, I wouldn't say that it like I'm not like creating these crazy new readings that because of Rebuild recontextualized stuff, but I think that watching that movie gave me more of an emotional attachment to these characters that I didn't necessarily have before, that made this watch through more engaging than like as engaging as it was the first time, if not more so. So I guess like the rebuilds enhanced my emotional connection with Ava, and I noticed that on this rewatch. So it's still one of my favorite shows. It's really good. And you, however, have a rather different experience with Ava, to my recollection.
In terms of my history, yeah. So I'll be brief with mine, because there's not as much to say on my end as yours. You have a huge lore that you just dumped out, obviously. Even like interacting with it like on a fanfic level. And one character in particular shining in that, and like you maybe even want to do. I feel like we've talked about this before. Have you mentioned like you want to do something original with this character, like even separate from the
so
Ava
basically
series?
Because I had the idea of like, well, what if I just finish this Ava story? But the problem with that is that so much of its like framework was come up with another person. So I instead had the idea to basically do an original work that's more like derived from this. The sort of stopgap. There is a stopgap though in that I also sort of adapted the character, but instead of a main character, she's a major like supporting character in the Hunter x Hunter fanfic I'm working on. But at that point, she's so like stripped down in a sense, because she's a supporting character and not a main character, that like it satisfied me in the moment, but when after that game had been dead for a while and I wanted to write this character, but now it's like, no, I still have more to this character to tell, and I have thought of ways to do that, and I'm still thinking of those ways, but anyway.
Go
ahead.
So just being brief on my end. I watched it back in 2018 or 2019, one of those two. It might have been 2018, but I was obviously younger, years ago, and I really did not like it. I thought it was predominantly the feeling I had of it was it's just boring. And actually, it's really funny, because I just remembered recently. I watched a video around that time. I had freshly finished it, and it was a video that actually had recently come out. Like I think it was within that same month that I had finished it. The guy was echoing like pretty much all of my sentiments on the story. I think I don't remember what the video title was called, but I think I know what it is. I remember the thumbnail. I think the thumbnail was something Ava related, and it said boring, boring, boring or something. And basically he was saying Evangelion is boring. If you type in Ava boring, like Evangelion boring, you'll probably find the video, because I think that was the thumbnail. As a matter of fact, I can check.
I'm doing that. Oh, is it the? Yeah, it's the Scamboli. I knew it was the fucking Scamboli video.
Ava boring.
Yes,
this one. Yes, Scamboli reviews. Yes. God, this has almost 2 million views. Holy shit, that's 5 years ago. Jesus. But yeah. I watched that video. So a lot of his sentiments in that video that I agree with. Essentially, my grievances with it back then were I thought there was a lot of, obviously, repetition is a huge part of Ava, because fundamentally, now I have a much broader understanding of it, because I'm engaging with it much better than I was last time. Because the thing about my engagement is, like, if on the forefront I find something boring, I'm just not going to engage with it near as much as if I'm actually interested in it. Most people are operate that way, right? But yeah, the repetition of like, oh, I'm lonely, oh, I don't like this, oh, I need to stop running away, but I can't stop running away because everything hurts and I want to run away from them all, but running away hurts. Like all this, this mantra, especially from the perspective of Shinji, I really didn't care for, especially when the forefront of everything I was experiencing, and from my mind was pretty boring. And not only that, adding to that, I thought all of like the lore stuff was hyper confusing, like, and just needlessly. And I was like, I don't understand all the intricacies of everything going on either, so there's nothing for me really to attach to. And that was my experience with Eva, basically. And even the end of Eva, even though I could appreciate especially that movie's craftsmanship and its imagery and its sound design and its animation, art, all that stuff.
It's a lot.
I appreciated it, but I didn't appreciate the story.
It wasn't your thing.
Yeah. Now I have a quite a bit different take on it. This sort of rewatch I predominantly enjoyed. There's still some grievances I have, but we'll get to that specifically with episode 24 and 25 of the the anime.
Or you mean 25, 25, and 26?
25 and 26, yes, sorry.
Okay, yeah, I knew what you meant. I just wanted to make sure. Yeah, it was clarified. Yeah,
I do want to preface the conversation with this much. I think my problem back then was it wasn't that I wasn't going through the same thing as those characters in the story. It's just that I hadn't fully internalized that a lot of my predominant pain in life was very similar to these characters. I really didn't connect with them like I did this time. I know myself a lot more. I understand where my mind goes when I'm hurt a lot more, and I understand like like I said, I've internalized that pain a lot more. Therefore, when I witness a lot of these characters, I find there's a lot of similarities I have with them on a fundamental level. And I think that's the core of Eva is essentially that, is like fundamentally all of our problems are the same. They sort of manifest from fear, but that fear is derived from loneliness, the fear of loneliness, right? And that, I resonated a lot with these characters. Like they have their particular issues, but all of them kind of resonate around the same idea, which is where the concept of the AT field comes in. Breaking that down is the only way to lead us up, because then we won't be lonely anymore, right? Everything will be as one. We'll finally be complete. Every human is essentially not complete and can't really be complete until this sort of metamorphosis of humanity,
or at least that's how they believe.
That's what they believe. Yes.
Exactly.
i.e. the human instrumentality project. But yes, now I resonated with all that stuff a lot more, and by and large, I did not think Eva was boring this time around. I thought it was really entertaining. I'd actually say Eva's really good, as a matter of fact. I've been turned around, turned a new leaf on the Eva.
That's cool to hear. I'm glad to hear it, because I mean it's a story I've always appreciated, and I definitely just really like. It's not, but for me it's not even like it hits me super personally. It does hit me emotionally because it's like a good story, but I don't know. I guess I don't know. Because I don't know. I don't know what I was trying to say there. I'm a mess today, maybe.
You're good. You're good.
Yeah. I'm turning into Tang. Oh no, I don't know. I hope you know some of the memes at least. No, okay. Tang is that one. It's the powdered orange drink. And then people made a joke that at the end of Eva, that you could summarize the end of Eva. Ray turns everybody into Tang. That's the joke.
Okay.
That's an old one too. That's probably like 20-year-old, 15, at least 15-year-old meme. Okay, so yeah, where do we want to start on this?
Okay, I know where to start.
Oh, perfect. Okay,
I know exactly where to start.
Throw out some suggestions.
I want to start because I want us to be on the same level for the rest of the discussion. I have a little bit I have just a couple of questions, okay?
Okay, see, I was going to make a joke about how, like, because I asked you previously, is like, could you send me the questions beforehand?
I forgot.
So I could try to answer. No, you only just finished the movie. It's fine. I understand it. But I was going to make a joke about how, like, you must be an Eva expert because you had no questions for me before this recording.
No, I'm anything but, okay? I'm anything
Okay,
but.
No, anyway, hit me. Because, going back to the lore, is, like, I absolutely understand finding it, like, cryptic, especially because, like, there's I think it's a PS2 game that has a bunch of the lore information in there, and so it's like extra material. So it's like, obviously, I don't even think it's translated into English. We only have it drip fed to us by Eva fans who have translated it. Basically, like, I don't think you can't just go play the game and find it. You have to, unless you know Japanese, basically. Jesus. So it's like this is locked off to people. So I understand not getting or caring for that aspect of the series because a lot of it is in the show. Like, me knowing some of that already, I was able to, like, put the pieces together and make these connections. because it's like there's so much shit they just like hit you with, and it's just like here's this one scene and a one line that again it's kind of cryptic, so it's like if that doesn't stick with you, which it's understandable that it bounces off because you don't understand what it is. So I feel like there was a couple scenes in there that I just like I don't remember that scene at all, but maybe that weren't necessarily war scenes or whatever, but they were still, you know, just the show's a lot, you know, editing wise. It's just very like just watch the opening and they just cut like, you know, it's just the show, it's very maximal, I guess, you know, like it's very dense, like I appreciate that aspect of it because it's just one of those things you can go back to and probably always get something new out of, you know, even for, I'm sure there's people who, you know, have had it as one of their, or if not their favorite anime for 30 years, just because it is, you could just keep watching, even though it's also like, cause you know, to briefly touch on episodes 25 and 26, it explains a lot of itself, but there's just also so much attention to detail that even if like, there's a number of like big things that are just said outright that maybe don't need to be, like I was watching End of Eva and like the whole show I'm watching Gendo, I'm like, you're such a piece of shit, but and then he's like, I just ran away, no one can love me, I just ran away from everyone. It's like,
okay, the thing is I already fucking knew that, Gendo. Fuck you, I knew that.
Was he the one character who you were telling me about? Like, I have this interpretation of the character, but they haven't explained him yet, having watched the TV series.
No, actually it is not Gendo. Gendo is my second favorite character, actually. He's my second favorite because of that. But he was explained anyway in the End of Eva, and I was like, yeah, I already know Gendo. I've already figured you out, buddy.
That's how I felt. It's like, Anyway, I just wanted to throw that. So anyway, go ahead with your first question, I guess, and I'll do my best.
So my first question is, Koaru, is that his name?
I think it.
Kaoru. Is it Kaoru?
Because I would think of it as Kaoru, but sometimes it's spelled with a W, and that's unusual to me because the symbol for WO, I've never actually heard it pronounced that way. Because it's usually just pronounced O, which is, there's a couple of, but it never in a word always has a particle like part of sentence structure rather than, so I don't know why it's spelled that way. I have not looked at the original spelling, basically. Okay. So I just call him Kaoru personally. So
Kaoru. And I think that's the way Shinji says it anyway. I'm remembering. He says something very interesting, and I mean this extends to the End of Eva when like Gendo is like talking to Rei and he's like, all right, it's time to return to Lilith and all that stuff. Like, there's so many things like, oh, this is Adam. Like Adam, we have Adam underground. Yep. The angels are going after Adam, but also the Evas are constructed from the essence of Adam, but then also the angels and humans. Humans are just another angel, but all the angels are like. They're different potentialities of humanity, right? Like, there's so much. Yes. Okay, but my question is like, at one point, Kaoru, before he gets killed by Shinji, he's like, "Oh yes, Adam," and then he goes, "Wait, no, you're Lilith." It's like, what? What is Lilith? I don't know. I know what. Okay, I kind of know what Adam is based on like the previous information we got. What the fuck is Lilith? I don't know what the fuck Lilith is. I don't know what that means.
Well, no, I get you. So basically, so I'm going to explain the lore. So I'm just going to, as short as possible, the lore bits that were added in the PS2 game, that this is like the once you have this foundational stuff, for me, at least for me, a lot of the rest of it just kind of falls into place. So basically, ancient aliens, highly advanced, wanted to seed life across the universe. So basically the seeds that they use to do so either carry the fruit of knowledge or wisdom and the fruit of life. Basically, first Adam in the with his fruit of life arrived in the white moon. So the white moon that's orbiting around the Earth, that's Adam. That's Adam's space vessel, basically. So he arrived at Earth and started seeding it with life. Like, you know how there's the angel in the volcano? That the angels were basically sort of hibernating on Earth. Because Adam had, he started to birth them, basically. Then what happened is a second vessel crashed into Earth. That was the Black Moon that Rei pulls out of the Earth during End of Evangelion. So another tidbit is like, they mention there's a line about the Geofront, which is, where Nerve's base is located under Japan. that's because basically that's where like Lilith sort of seeded life. I believe that somehow the process of or this is part's more like a little vague for me and me sort of filling in the details, but like because they mention how there's a similar cavity under Antarctica. That's where they found Adam. So something about like that's like Adam's moon and him creating life there made that cavity under Antarctica, and then Lilith had a similar one under Japan, and that basically you have these two creators of life basically, and this similar like structure is more what I'm trying to point out. So anyway,
how are there the lives that they're creating distinct? Like is Lilith creating humanity, but then like or like humanity as we know it, and then like Adam is creating the angels? Like what?
Well, yes, it basically yes. So because when they say that they're kind of similar, that because they're both they're ultimately from the same source of life, and so but humans have distinguished themselves because they were all that they knew for thousands of years, and then they come across these alien beings that shouldn't be like humans at all, but like under the microscope, pattern blue, like they say like they're basically like 99% like us, right? Okay. So basically, yes. So because Lilith, I believe Lilith's ship crash landed, and Lance of Longinus, like they both had one, but the one with the Lilith ships broke. So Adam sealed himself because basically there's like a protocol that they're not supposed to both be seeding life on the same planet, or else end of Evangelion happens basically. So Adam sealed himself with the Lance of Longinus, and Lilith seeded the Earth with the Lilm, as Kaoru calls them, or humanity. So yes, humans are the children of Lilith, and angels are the children of Adam. So like the humans have knowledge and intelligence, where the angels have the S2 organ or the S2 engine, which basically it's there's in one of those this director's cut scenes, and I think in episode 21 they talk about like how that's how the angels get their power, like because the Evangelion units have to be plugged in for the armor and stuff to run generally, but the angel unit 01 doesn't seem to need that after it gets the S2 organ from the angel in episode 19. So because now and it becomes a god because now it has intelligence because it has a human soul and the engine of life basically from the angels. So that's pretty much the distinction there. So when Kaoru finds Lilith, it's like the angels are trying to reawaken Adam so that because basically the angels versus humanity is a fight to decide who gets Earth, like what species, what being gets to survive on Earth. So it's so the angels want to reawaken Adam so that they can basically have won that fight, and the humans generally speaking, humans should just want to persist on their own, but the Salient, of course, they want to do human instrumentality and merge as one because that's their idea of becoming gods, basically, of just becoming all one organism. Kaoru finds Lilith's body underneath, and he thinks that because he as an angel was trying to awaken Adam, but Gendo had Adam. He had the little Adam the fetus that Kaji brought him. That was Adam, or at least part of Adam. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, and that was from like Antarctica, I guess. Because you said he crashed landed in Antarctica.
Yes.
Okay. That's
I think Kaji stole. Well, because of course, so First Impact, that's Lilith crash landing into the planet, which I did forget about that when I was talking about with you earlier, because I was like, I think First Impact was just the dinosaurs, and I'm thinking about it, it's like, no, I think First Impact was Lilith crash landing on Earth, which might have killed the dinosaurs. I don't know how that works. Maybe the dinosaurs were Adam's first life. I don't fucking know. Maybe there's some shit in there about that. And then of course, Second Impact, humans found Adam underneath Antarctica and released it, and oops. Killed 2/3 of the planet and doomed it to eternal summer, eternal swamp balls, eternal. Oh god, I couldn't imagine.
Hell yeah.
And then of course Third Impact was Gendo trying to use Rei to because Gendo's ultimate goal is he just wants to be reunited with Yui, which he would do through the human instrumentality with all their souls merging. But the irony being that Yui's soul is in 01, and that just goes flying off into space in the end, because you see the scene of her talking about how like, oh yeah, humanity. She wants humanity to exist, and having Eva 01 out there, lasting forever, proves that humanity existed with her soul on board. And
Yui,
Rip Gendo, you don't get what you want, motherfucker, piece of shit.
Rip Bozo, haha.
Let's go. Okay. So hopefully that explained enough of what you were looking for, basically.
Yes,
so,
it does. It does. Now I have a fundamental understanding of what the hell is going on. Thank God. In a logistics sense. I still have I think I have a fundamental understanding of what's going on with the characters. But
with the character, for sure, yeah, that's much easier to grasp.
Yeah,
but, the logistics of like, especially you watch End of Eva, and it just like, oh yeah, the black moon, and when you're just watching, it's like, okay, I guess there's a black moon under the planet that Rey just pulled out. But now me knowing already from other material is like, oh yeah, I know the black moon from when Lilith crash landed there, where that under the geofront, or it was the geofront, or however. Yeah, it makes total sense. It's like, no, it's and it is deliberately like cryptic, obtuse, which kind of, so that also works on another level, because like Shinji, like I remember reading a paper basically sort of like, there's, I guess, like the higher level of society, which is like the governments and nations, and then the personal level, which is like the individual, their family and community, and or more closely than that, more family. Community is more the second middle level. And basically talking about how like Evangelion sort of represents this sort of alienation that people had because the 90s had both the Kobe earthquake, which was a huge, or still one of the most like deadly if not the deadliest natural disaster in Japan, and it led to a lot of people's not trusting the government because of their sluggish and inept response. And you also had the sarin gas attacks, where a cult did a terror attack on a train station because they believe in some, had some, wild cultish beliefs, basically, that allowed them to just kill the Japanese people. And these sort of they basically made the Japanese people, them harder to trust that upper level of the nation because of their bad response to disasters, and then their own communities, because it's like, wow, Japanese people can do this fucked up shit. And so Evangelion, so the bigger level of the story not being hard to grasp just kind of puts you into Shinji's shoes, because he's a kid, just do this thing, because he's basically like forced to work for that higher level to save the world. But it's like, they don't, Misato's like the one person trying to help him and understand him, but she has her own issues and her own like toxic masculinity, like that she's pushing on him in some ways. And like, so it works for the story in that way, but it's also like, adults maybe don't want to feel like they don't know what's the fuck's going on, and like that's a natural response, I guess. But at least that's my argument for like, why is it presented like this? And it's like, it's because it helps put you into Shinji's shoes, but the lore is out there. But again, it's not in the series, and you don't need to know it to. Obviously, tons of people have always liked Evangelion without knowing all that shit from a game from the PS2 that was like 10 years after Ava came out. Probably more like 5 or 6, but still.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay. And one more question that just has me like scratching my head, like, is like, if what are the guys like in the circle, like, yeah, we're so close to the human instrumentality project.
Yes.
Seal,
yes.
Yeah, okay, Seal, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That's
Sealy. I forget exactly how it's pronounced, even though I just watched the show. Sorry for anyone in the comments being like, why did you pronounce it like that? Sorry. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. If Gendo and them both want, because they dissent, obviously, especially by the end, like they're always like, he will betray us, but no, he wants like the same thing as them, doesn't he? Like, what? Why are they dissenting?
Well, so the one difference, there was, hold on, let me because that one I'm hold on, so let me read my notes on that, because I specifically the different distinction I remember them mentioning was okay, here it is. So I think I know what it. Okay, now it's all clicking into place as I read my, because basically the first distinction they make is that Sele wants to use Lilith for instrumentality, and Gendo wants to use Rei. Rei being, and of course what ultimately happens is Rei betrays Gendo, and she combines with Lilith and allows Shinji to decide the fate of humanity, basically, because she cares about him. But anyway, so Sele's goal is, they talk about wanting a new they basically wanted to reduce Earth to a blank slate and make it a new beginning for humanity. And there was also the mention of like an arc, which was like the cross-shaped thing that ends up getting like inserted at one point. That's right. So if 01 turns into that red cross thing that gets inserted into Rei and some of the sexual imagery, basically. So it's like, what I think is meant to be is basically Sele wanted to board the, because I think Fuyutsuki said something like, will that arc be, or will that be an arc through humanity or a harbinger of destruction? So I think Sele wanted to basically put all their souls on that arc, redo Earth, and then come back to it, basically. Where Gendo just kind of wants to stay in the soup forever with Yui, basically. So so Sele is basically this like sort of twisted progress, where Gendo is a stagnance, you could say. I think that's the main difference in what they want, to the best of my knowledge of the mechanics of the world and what they're doing. But
that's still okay. I still have question marks, because even in the even in the end of Eva, they're saying essentially the same thing as Gendo. They're like, this is the final evolution of humanity. Like we will like merge, and like we will like fill our hearts, basically. So it sounds like they want to stay in, the primordial soup too. Like they don't want to like come back as individuals necessarily. Like even if they want to reshape the world, it doesn't sound like they want to come back as individuals. Sounds like they want to be
that's true. Yeah,
and be gods, right? Because he talks about ascending as gods.
Yes, because that's ultimately what because. I don't know. That's the part where I'm not, because that's what I was getting as I was first watching it. But yeah, you're right, because when Shinji does start, or guide, or it hurts. I don't want to hurt anymore. So Rei's like, okay, human instrumentality. Everyone's the same. No one feels any pain. Everyone's together. Because I do remember them having that lines where it's like, yeah, they were okay with that, which yeah, because I don't know, maybe there's some missing step in there where, because like again, just going from that those earlier comments in the movie about them seeming to want a blank slate, and made me think that, do they want some kind of advancement where Gendo doesn't? Maybe. Like,
maybe. Okay, I'm now theorizing myself. Maybe now with the information you told me, maybe their assumption is Lilith is on the same wavelength as them on the plan for humanity, whereas Gendo, since he wants to use Rei as the initiator of the human instrumentality project, there's a lot of question marks there. It's like, well, what does Rei want? What does Gendo want, really? Like, we know what Lilith wants. We think we know what Lilith wants. What does Rei want? Rei, being a liaison through Gendo, basically. That's too many question marks. Like, Gendo has always been like a loose cannon. Yes. So that's probably what it is, now that I'm thinking about it.
And there's a bunch in this last episode, there's a bunch of posturing between Gendo and Sele where they're very much like at odds with each other, but they're not fully, pulling out the guns. Of course, that's what End of Eva is about. Like, they literally kill the last angel, and then, what they're talking about, like, the last enemy who's humanity, huh? Like, just as Sele moves in with the soldiers, and it just, brutal.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Okay. That was about it for, and so I do want to clarify, I'm not some sort of Eva expert. Like, in this podcast, relatively speaking, it's like I've seen it twice as many times as Spicy, and I've read the one lore document like once, like 5-10 years ago. No, I've read it maybe twice, but I've internalized at least some of it. If there's anyone in the comments who wants to clarify, so I hope you're not too frustrated, like, no, these guys are so dumb, they don't understand anything. Like, it's Eva, it's a series that kind of invites, like, there are some things that they just say outright, but it just still invites, you to dig into it, and that's, again, part of why I liked it. So, and yeah, if there's some fucking, one volume untranslated manga that explains, like, this aspect of this, I don't know, well, that's the thing. It's also, like, a media mix thing, where it's, like, or how I think about it with, like, big things like this is, like, you can kind of, like, I don't know, I guess, like, sort of, so you've seen American Psycho? I know you referenced Patrick Bateman, but have you seen it? Have you seen the movie?
That's my Mushoku Tensei video reference right there. I have Patrick Bateman in the beginning. I know where you're getting this from.
You also said it to me while we were talking once.
Oh, did I?
So, you were like, I used a face mask for the first time. I'm going bait mode or something. Or you made a Patrick Bateman reference. You did something like skin treatment, something like that. I just remembered that reference, so yeah. Anyway, go ahead. Answer the question.
Okay, I did do that. I forgot about that conversation. Anyway, I have seen American Psycho. I don't care for it as much as like the meme community does, but it's a decent movie. Yeah.
Okay. Well, the point I was going to make is like at least where my sort of stance on like readings of things come at least like, or the best example I can put it, because like the thing with American Psycho and when I discussed it back when I watched it for the second time a couple of years ago, is like your interpretation, your reading from the movie really depends on like which scenes are Patrick Bateman's fantasy and which parts are reality. And sort of like, and I especially, it's like, you don't have to just have one reading is the ultimate one and it's the best one and everyone else's is wrong. You can go like, multiple readings are fair. So when it comes to like big franchises, I guess my thought is like, well, if you take like, okay, there's Evangelion and End of Eva, you can like read into those on their own and ignore everything else, or you can draw in like the rebuilds, or maybe in comparison to this manga, that's kind of what the media mix is, where you have this one core thing and then you have all these other things that just have more stuff with the characters that isn't, and they're not necessarily canon or whatever, but they're still like you just you can base your readings on the characters of these things, but maybe these ones don't add to that reading. But if you do those ones instead, they have this other reading. So I don't know. That's sort of how I see it with Ava, and I guess why I'm fine with bringing in the stuff from the video games. But like, you can, and Star Wars is another franchise like that where it's like, what is the Force? The answer will literally change depending on what material you touch on, because it's even the people, because it's a franchise bit that's been written by a bunch of different people and they have different reads on what the Force is.
It's many
right, or what it might mean thematically, or exactly, or what balance means, so like there's different readings of it that will vary based on different media, but it's fine, just enjoy what you enjoy and find ideally, like for me, find ways to appreciate everything, and engage with the entertain or engage with those other readings, even if they're not your preferred one, is just sort of how I like. If there's a problem with our readings, like, that's fine too, that's worth discussion, but like, it's not a problem with like, I remember I got a comment on my Bleach video, one of the Aizen one, where because I pointed out how, like, Ichigo's sword is moon cutter, and it's like, I just point out how it's like, well, yeah, Aizen's the false moon, and Ichigo literally, he cuts through the false moon, but it's like, and someone's like, no, Yuavaha's the moon. And it's like, these interpretations don't contradict each other.
Yeah.
Like, he cuts through both, literally. Like, what do you, like, it's not, you're not countering my point by pointing out a different reading. Like, I don't know. Anyway, that's not related. We've gone on. We've talked for like half an hour, and I don't think we've said half the characters' names in the show.
Yeah. We're getting there.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, I've done my best. So
I do want to start off by saying something. You introduced to me a question mark that you actually had. It's a scene in episode 1 where Shinji's at the phone booth and he looks and he just sees Rei in the middle of the street.
Yes. And then she's gone.
Yeah, Spooky. I was watching the end of Eva, and this exact thing, by the way, happens at the final scene of the movie. He looks at the water, Rei's there, and then she disappears. And I was immediately like, oh, wait, this is like a full circle from the scene in episode 1. But since I literally just finished the movie, I haven't given myself enough time to think of the meaning of that. But I don't know if there's like a logistical explanation. Like, it's still a good bookend, and I did think while watching End of Eva, like, because you had the specifically the Rei in the school uniforms appearing all over to everyone, or before that, I think the first times we saw her was with Misato and Ritsuko, when they died. Rei appeared above them, and then it just happens. And anyway, I did remember, like, oh yeah, that's kind of like the scene. Maybe it's touching on on the fantasy of Rei, like Rei being this like this schoolgirl, this kind of blank slate schoolgirl that you want to know more about, but in reality she is something constructed from Lilith, or maybe something like that. I don't know. It's off the top of my head. And people are like, they're engrossed in the fantasy, not in like what Rei really is.
Oh yeah, I mean, that's definitely. I mean, the meta aspect, and Evangelion, particularly the first series and End of Eva, being like meant to give it's Anno's message to otaku, basically. Like, that's definitely a big point of discussion for the series, but it's also not one I'm particularly interested in. Because like you can see that, which is like the fact that Rei she's a kudere, which is like an idea for like, it's like a character is emotionless, but then when they start to fall in love, they start to have emotions, and it's cute. Or the tsundere, where Asuka is like, oh, they're angry and prickly, but once they get close to you, they're cute. and like that gap between the harshness or the blankness and then with the love part makes it's a trait that people like in characters. And then you have Rei and Asuka, where it's obviously the perfect example is Rei, is the scene where Shinji goes into her room and he oops, the underwear is everywhere, and he falls and touches her breast, and she doesn't react at all. Like it's off-putting. It's like this is like, she just doesn't give a shit, right? Like it's it's supposed to kind of be the opposite of erotic, really.
Or even at the end of to tackle what you said about Asuka being a tsundere, the final scene of End of Eva, it's like her and Shinji should be closer than ever before, because they were literally merged for a little bit under the Human Instrumentality Project. And yet, even at the end, she's like, the final line in the fucking movie. Disgusting, right?
Or even, because, Shinji's, because he's strangling her, and she doesn't, react like Asuka. She gives him, strokes his face. She's giving him, kindness. She's giving him what he wants. And it's like, but then it's just you're disgusting because Shinji, End of Eva.
End of Eva, baby.
Which I gotta say, I think emotionally I might end up still liking the last Rebuild movie more, but End of Eva is just so iconic. There's so much imagery in that movie.
Oh my
and
God,
there's that's just so holy fuck.
Dude,
it's
there's so many sequences, but stained in my mind will always be Shinji screaming, and then the pan out into the wings sprouting from the 01 Ava, fucking, oh my God, it's grisly. It's crazy.
Is that at the end? That's the end, at the end of part 1 before the credits.
Yes,
right
before the credits. Yes.
God. See, for what was the one for me? Oh no, just for me. After I finished End of Eva, and I couldn't do anything for 20 minutes. I had to get up and look out the window for a second. I was I should do something because I have other things I want to do today. But I was just I can't because my brain, it hurts. Everything. It's just such a brutal movie. So I love it.
It's really good.
Oh,
it's definitely really good.
Yeah.
Definitely the best of what Ava has to offer that I've seen so far. For sure.
Mm-hmm.
I hope I agree with you though, because I'm genuinely very interested in the Rebuild movies.
There's one specific thing it does that I think you'll pog basically if you or at least if you don't notice it yourself when I point out the connection, you'll be like, oh yeah, I like a dynamic that you might enjoy. Basically, I'll say that.
Nice.
But I don't. But then I don't know, because I think I talked with Mathwiz about it just briefly, and she mentioned where it's because she does like the last Rebuild as well, but she just likes End of Eva a bit more, and they're interesting to talk about in tandem. But I'll save a lot of that for when we actually talk about the Rebuilds, which isn't going to be next time. It's going to be, I just figure we'll take a break, especially because the first Rebuild film is literally just the first 6 episodes remade into a movie with some minor changes. So I just figure, let's take a breather and do some other stuff, and then we'll come back to for the Rebuilds. So, but anyway, so yeah, I guess, what are some of your favorite moments from the series in general? I guess just to try and start some discussion. 43 minutes into the podcast.
I'll start with I think the best episode of the original TV series is far and away the extended flashback episode where you get sort of the lore of all of these characters like Ritsuko, Misato, all those people at Nerve basically, and then also in tandem with that is the kind of Kaji's finale.
Okay.
And then then the way that episode ends with Misato at the phone, and then if I survive, I want to tell you the thing that I couldn't tell you 8 years ago. That episode was my favorite episode when I first watched it, and even though I like Ava a lot more now than when I first watched it, it still remains my favorite episode of the original TV series. I think the flashback is really good, adds a lot of important context, but it's also just really entertaining, really interesting. Ritsuko's mom is really, really her story, her interaction with Rei, the horror of it, the horror of Gendo, the horror Gendo brings about with every woman, basically. All of that episode is just 10 out of 10, masterclass. I love that episode so much. I could sit here and just talk about that episode for at least 30 minutes. There's so much in that episode that I love, but for the sake of time, especially, I'm not gonna harken on it too much. But yeah, And obviously another layer, spoiler, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit later, or even that could be the next thing we talk about. Kaji is my favorite character in Eva, so that being like his sort of also
just like
his
me,
episode.
for real.
Yeah. Well, no, definitely not. Definitely not. Like, there's a reason why Kaji is. I'm definitely way more like Misato, Shinji, like all these other characters that are a lot more that are not as whole. I'm already kind of spoiling like my interpretation of Kaji, but anyway, we'll get to that. Multiple reasons I love that episode, but
because I'm trying to think, because as far as like I don't know the moments, I don't know for some reason like I don't know why my best girl might surprise you.
Oh,
who do you think my best girl is actually?
Just knowing you and like the characters I know you like. I would automatically assume your best girl would be Rei, but I'm probably wrong given that you're saying already that like it's going to surprise you, so it's probably not Rei.
I do like Rei, especially. I feel like one thing I got more out of this watch through was I think her episode in 21 where because for some reason it never really clicked to me because so with the Eva mechanics is like so Yui's soul is in 01, most of Asuka's mother's soul is in 02. And some reason I never really thought about like how does Unit 0 work because it needs a human soul in it to function, and it's like it has part of Rei's soul in it, and she has a conversation with that other half of her soul right before she dies, basically. That's why she was talking with herself, because she's talking with and Rei's in general is just like interesting to think about because it's like because there's Rei the First, who was the child who Ritsuko's mother strangled to death. Then there's Ritsuko the Second, who's the one we know through most of the series, and she is killed by that angel. And then Rei the Third is the one who we end the series off with, End of Eva. But they also have like residual memories from the previous ones because because the reason 00 goes berserk every time it sees Ritsuko is because it has the residual memories from Rei the First. That it's like, that's the woman who fucking strangled me to death. I want to kill her. Right? So, because I think Ritsuko, because the way it's framed when we first see the flashback in like episode 4 or 5, I think it was. No, I think it was 5. It looks like it's going after Gendo, but then Ritsuko is in that room, and then later when Zero goes berserk again, Ritsuko mentions like it was going after me. Because she knows that the Evangelions have human souls, and she knows that part of Rei's soul is in 00. So, I guess I hadn't really unpacked that before, and I was like, oh yeah, no, that makes sense. So I do like Rei, for sure. But at least going just off base emotional reaction, Unit 01 is my best girl, because when Unit 01 goes berserk out of its motherly love, holy fucking shit.
That's a cheat. You're cheating.
I know. But it's just like episode 19, I think 16 is when it busts out of the one circular angel that had Shinji trapped, and then 19 is when God, the Beast is such a, I don't know, I love that track, awakening. Basically, that's or the Beast 2, excuse me, I'm pretty sure, where it's just, and then, like, the howls, especially in 19, because you have the animalistic, like, animation for 01, it's just moving, it just gets me every fucking time, I'm like,
it's
God.
So cool. It's so horrifying good. And cool at the same time, it's crazy, yeah.
Yes, exactly, because it's, like, cathartic to watch, but it's also, because, like, obviously, Eva, the messaging is like, grow up, leave the womb of your mother, and go out into the world, right? With Evangelion. Like, that's one of the things that I think might be, I kind of think of it in, like, I've only seen a few stories that kind of do it. One Piece is one of them, actually, where there's a sort of thematic duality, where, because usually we think of stories and it's like, okay, there's like a thematic message here, and character who does positive, like, wins out, and character who does negative loses out, or whatever, right? But then sometimes you'll do like this, where there's like the growing up message of like, leaving going past the parents and moving beyond them. But then there's also the like self-actualization aspect. So with Shinji, like his successes become because he's like making these decisions, even if the series like will go on to break down those decisions. Like he's like, oh, I want to pilot Eva to get praise from others, where it's like, oh, okay, he's making a decision, he's making a choice, that is positive, and that's but the reasons behind it because of his deference to his father, and also like with Asuka in 02, it's like, she's remaining with inside her mother because she's been looking for that love and so she's able to get that power and fight off the mass production angels, but it's not like lasting because you have to grow up eventually, so it doesn't work, and she ends up losing that battle in the end. Right. So it's like, so with Unit 01, it's like, it's Shinji relying on her mother in a sense. So it's like a negative, but also it's just giant cool robot. As far as the actually, you know what? I think it might be Rei, but not for reasons I can talk about yet. But I do love Masato. Aside, not even just because she's hot. Masato's she's just a good, interesting character. Like, so, yeah. I hadn't really, I guess it didn't really stick with me until rewatching it, where the way she interacts with Shinji, because she hits him with like a barb of like, man up, or something like that. That's, not necessarily understanding him, but then she like follows it up with a kindness, basically. Like, her initial instinct is toxic masculinity to toughen up, be a man, but then she follows it up with like the sweetness, with her being like trying to be a mother figure, and obviously it's not really what Shinji needs, because it's still like holding him to some kind of standard that he doesn't really want to fulfill, like if he does, it's not for a good reason,
an impossible standard. And this is something I want to discuss, because you said something very interesting, like them being in the Eva is kind of like, in a way, it's as if they're back in the womb, right? It's a place of
I think there's a direct mention to that. Yes. But yeah, exactly.
Yes. Which is just even symbolically knowing that a piece of these people are in the Eva, like that. Obviously, like symbolically, that's exactly what it means.
Yes.
But and especially like, I mean, there's clear imagery we see in the episodes where like both Asuka and Shinji are multiple times curled up in their Eva as if they're a fetus, right? So all this stuff. I
especially noticed it in End of Eva, with like Asuka in 02, and 02 is also in the water in a fetal position. It's like, well, you're nesting fetuses now. Yes.
But something I did want to mention is because, like, while for Shinji in the beginning of the series, it is a place of discomfort because of like what he has to do in the Eva, but slowly but surely he starts to understand more of the Eva's essence, and of course by the end he understands all of what's going on around him, essentially, and that enables him to kind of grasp the first step of what he's doing, because he has some help from within himself technically, but it's because within himself is so much more now because of the Human Instrumentality Project. So yeah, it's a little bit complicated, but I've made sense of it. I understand what's going on. The really cool thing about Eva, and the reason why it's cyclical, especially with Shinji, is because he is constantly in a position that the adults should be in, right? Whereas every child is in that position where they're the ones on the front line, when it should always be the reverse, right? It should always be the next generation is there watching the backs of the current generation to understand the significance of what they're doing, and to like and to grasp those lessons. And what's funny too is because these adults not only are screwed up in a similar vein as all these people with the same loneliness, but they've never had the experience of being in an Eva. They have never been on the front lines fighting angels like these people. How could they even possibly connect with these kids to give them the guidance they need, like Asuka and Shinji specifically, in order to grow up, right? These kids can't possibly grow up. Asuka can't possibly be comfortable with losing, and Shinji can't possibly be comfortable around other people unless people can understand their situation, and it's impossible to understand their situation if they haven't literally been in their situation, right? So it's this cascading effect of like, they are trying so hard to have these kids mature into adults, but they fundamentally can't evolve these children because they themselves are stuck using children because of their own stagnancy, basically, right? So fundamentally, they're all kind of children, and that's kind of the point of the Human Instrumentality Project, is like, we're all lonely children inside, no matter how much we grow, no matter how much we do. So it's really cool. I love this thematic beat of Evangelion. And it's from episode 1 and on.
Yeah, it's really well encapsulated with Gendo and Shinji, because like when you just listen to Gendo's speech about explaining his character in End of Eva, it's like he's literally just a Shinji who has like gone deeper into this negative aspect of himself, where it's like, oh yeah, no one can love me, so I'll just avoid other people to, because he's like, I'm avoiding, like he doesn't want to hurt Shinji by getting close to him and hurting him, but like by staying away, he's hurting him too. Like he fucked Shinji up. Like God, rewatching the last episode, because the memes with him, it's like get in the robot Shinji, and it's like completely ignoring the incredible neglect and abuse from this man. Like Gendo's a piece of shit, and Shinji's abused child being fucking manipulated like hard. Like he's like, okay, like because he literally came to the city that's being attacked by, well, it wasn't being attacked by a giant monster when he started to go to Tokyo S3, but it was when he was there, and he like, just because his dad said come, like we see the note and everything's like crossed out and just says come Gendo. And he gets there, and he's like, okay, well, I don't really need you. You were just useful to me. Bring in the crippled girl. She'll fight in his stead. Like, Jesus Christ, you're a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Like, holy fuck.
And why he's a piece of shit is really the interesting part.
Yes, I know, I agree.
It's his tether to humanity was Yui, Shinji's mom, and that is what kind of filled his heart, like it filled his lonely heart. When she dies, obviously now he doesn't have that, but he ignores everything else, because to Yui, if she's not there, no one else might as well be there, or at least that's what he convinced himself of. So only by reuniting with her can he fill his lonely heart. And because of that, because of his manipulation of other people and his sort of ostracization of everyone as soon as they've outlived their usefulness, he kind of permeates this loneliness and makes other people have to suffer with him, right? Ritsuko's mom, Ritsuko herself, Shinji, obviously, very much so. And his sort of excuse is because, like, I didn't deserve to, when the reality is it's not about deserving or not deserving. It's about you felt like you could not fill this, the only Yui could fill this hole. You didn't even try to enable anyone to come and take her place. You didn't even you didn't even reserve the right for the possibility to happen. Therefore, you've allowed everyone to suffer, and now you here at the end are now, your folly is exposed, basically, right? You counted on this literal, in a sense, like in her face, in her features, she resembles Yui almost to a T. Probably a younger Yui. This is probably exactly what she looked like. And you're looking to her, like going on your knees, please, like bring me to salvation, bring me back to the real Yui. And it's like, well, the real Yui was all around you and other people. You just didn't see it. Yeah. So again, like that's what makes Gendo really interesting, is because he is just as childish and just as lonely as Misato, as Shinji, as all these people. And of course, by the end of it, end of Eva, I mean, we explicitly get that in dialogue, which I obviously don't care for, because I already picked apart all of this way before the end of Eva. So,
for sure. And well, because like I guess, and especially like the way I sort of frame it is sort of like, of course these kids failed because the adults around them did not give them the tools to succeed, because they're just as fucked up, right? And that's like how it becomes cyclical. Like Gendo doing, like him making these mistakes is what, like, now Shinji's making those same mistakes, right? So it's just, it's all fucked. I just remembered. So speaking of End of Eva, apparently that discourse point was incorrect, because if you remember in Mushoku Tensei, our main boy Rudy drops an Evangelion reference where apparently the order that the characters congratulate Shinji in episode 26 matches the order that they die in End of Eva. It's not correct. So I wrote down the congratulations order. It starts with Misato. Then it goes Asuka, Rei, Ritsuko, except Misato and Ritsuko die before Asuka does. So, and then after that it's Kaji. He's already dead. Hikari, Kensuke, Toji, and Pen. If they didn't die, like they died off screen. So it's like, if nothing else, they died when Rei pulled the Black Moon out of the Earth, because a lot of people would have died then, and anyone in Japan would have been dead. Anyway, so point being is that like I don't know where I don't know maybe I'll get something different out of it when I read that part of Mushoku Tensei in Japanese, or maybe it's just theory that was like a neat idea that someone had and it propagated, but it's not correct to my reading at least, unless maybe there's a different edit order for one of the like the TV congratulations scene or something. I don't know. Anyway, just want to pivot because I thought about that. So yeah, I'm trying to think of like what are some debunked rip. So what are some other things I got out of rewatching it that I didn't really get?
Oh, can I start? Can I start?
Good, please.
Because I want to talk about Misato a little bit. So especially her specifically her dynamic with Shinji. I think there's two really pivotal scenes that kind of like shape the way I think about Misato and Shinji's dynamic. Is the fact that like she is kind of the stand-in parent, and because of that, she kind of represents all of how the adults treat Shinji, and kind of just like handle him in a way where they don't actually have to tackle his problems with him. I think a perfect example of this is the scene where Misato is obviously feeling very lonely because of Kaji's passing, and obviously Shinji is too, because he always is. So Misato goes in his room and like tries to like hold his hand and stuff, and Shinji's like, no, get away from me. Because in that moment, Misato is trying to bridge the gap of both of their lonely, like they're both lonely people. She understands that in Shinji understands that in her. But Misato is not meeting Shinji at his she's not meeting him where he's lonely. She's trying to force Shinji to meet her where she's at, where her loneliness lies, right? So it's like she's not at all playing the part of an adult and trying to lower herself to Shinji to truly like, coalesce with each other and understand each other, right? And this is always, and then this goes back to when Shinji is first like, I'm going to stop piloting the Eva. Misato immediately goes, that's understandable. I see what you go through and all this stuff. Run away if you want to. But that's not the right answer either. I understand, like, it's pain. You understand it's painful for Shinji, and it's like, well, it's better he's running away. You're thinking the best for him. Well, no, the best for him is to sit down and talk this through. Like, what about it was painful? Like, can you recover from this? Like, are you okay? Right? Not okay, Shinji, it's fine. Get out of here. Like, no, that's not that's not what Shinji needs in this moment. He needs someone to understand where he's coming from, right? Yes. And so Misato, time and time again, just fumbles as like a parental figure, but so does everyone else, because fundamentally they're all fumbling as adults to these children that are so they're so fucked up, basically, for lack of a better terminology.
It's a memorable line. So yeah. Oh boy. So one interesting thing I was getting at, or before I go into this, do you have a favorite angel by chance, or were they all just like monsters to you? Or was there one who stood out even in like how they because they operated in neat different ways, and some more abstract than others. So I was wondering if any stood out to you, even design wise. I like that design. Just wondering.
I really liked the final one, the one where that is getting inside Asuka's head. That one, I love the imagery of that one. Yeah, that one's super cool.
Cool. Because I actually one thing I noted. So as far for me, I especially think about it because I just watched a video where someone was talking about like shapes trying to kill you. This wasn't the point of the video; it was just a part of the video. And I was thinking about the angel from episodes 5 and 6, where it's just a fucking like triangle that shoots lasers of death. It's just a shape trying to kill you. So that's a fun one. But one thing I noticed was more the arc of some of the last angels, basically, because I think my order is correct here, but you have the one angel in episode 16 that was the black and white. Well, this black and white sphere was its shadow, basically, that it trapped Shinji in. Where, because I remember after Shinji got out, they were talking about how was the angel trying to communicate with Shinji? And because he had some mental images, and it's like, well, we're not sure, but maybe. And then I think you got the angel that there was the one that it was like maybe that was later, but the worm one that tried to like insert into Rei, basically. It's like it's sort of like merging with her body, basically, and sort of like understanding humanity from that angle. And then you have the one that was trying to messed with Asuka's mind, where, as they say, it's like, I think they give a line of how it's trying to understand humanity, basically. Yes, yeah. Like, it's not necessarily like trying to harm Asuka, but in trying to understand Asuka, it's also forcing her to understand herself and bring out all this buried shit that she does not want to think about at all, and that's what fucks with her basically. And then of course it's sort of this basically like I don't know the angels fighting humanity by trying to understand them, and then this sort of culminating in Kaoru, who is an angel in the image of a human, basically. Which I didn't even think about how that he sort of parallels the Evas in that way, because the Evas are human weapons in the shape of the angels, right? They're human creations in the shape of the angels, basically. And so Kaoru's an angel in the shape of a human.
Okay, cool.
So yeah. I just noticed that, and I was like, oh, that's pretty neat.
Yeah, I guess because technically he's the final angel. Yeah.
Yes. I knew who you meant. I knew the one you meant, because it's like, well, there's only one angel that fucks up with Asuka like that.
Yeah, and also not just the angel alone, but like that final imagery of the spear of I've been calling it.
The Lance of Longinus. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been calling it the spear of Longina is what I've been calling it.
Oh, no.
Like that imagery of it. Like
this is a mature podcast for mature people.
Just be real, okay? It's also a real podcast. We're just real. We talk real talk, okay? But like the imagery of it just like shooting through that angel, because the angel already looks very angelic, right? Like that's one big reason. Like the shots of it kind of like floating over that part of Earth, and then like the spear shooting through it. All that stuff, imagery wise, is so fucking cool. Like more than any other angel we see. The only thing that kind of that kind of usurps it for me in terms of the original anime is like the imagery of 01 whenever it goes whenever it goes berserk. Like that stuff is like that's I think the best imagery we get in all of the original TV anime. But that's like the only thing I can think of that like that eclipses it for me in terms of like where I was like my mouth kind of agape, like, oh my god, it's such a beautiful shot, But
so yeah, I guess go if you have something to talk about, go for it.
Yeah, I guess I can go ahead since we've been talking a lot about characters. I know we kind of pivoted a little bit somewhere else.
Yeah, that's fine.
I did want to. I guess this is a perfect opportunity to talk a little bit about Kaji, and kind of my interpretation of him, why he is my favorite character. Especially given the fact that he is the one that is extrapolated the least out of all of these main adult characters.
So far.
But and I appreciate that for Kaji, because I like my interpretation of him. I think Kaji is a very fascinating character. I think it's because he is, and as I said earlier, he is the most whole character in Eva. And by that I mean so all these characters are trying to fill their loneliness by sort of running away from the root of their loneliness. They're trying to fill it in sort of artificial ways, things that won't truly like fill it long term. Whereas Kaji, as we see him, he's a very passionate player boy. That is, he sort of rides on his emotions. He sort of he lives true to his heart, basically. And by that I mean, like, for instance, I think the best example of this is like his story with Misato, where it's like, because of the void inside her, and she was trying to artificially fill it through Kaji, because Kaji was emblematic of her father at the time, especially. And when he couldn't fill the hole her father left, because he is not her father, she ran away from that pain, right? And left Kaji in the dust. When Kaji at that point was thinking of potentially proposing to her, because that's obviously what he's alluding to in the phone call. And obviously, Kaji would have been hurt, would have felt very lonely, like Misato just running away from him like that. But through those years, he's come back to Misato as a changed man, as someone that has enabled himself to fill that hole in his heart, because when they meet, we have that conversation where Misato spilling all this stuff. And even before this scene, we see how Kaji works, how he's just like, he's true to himself. He's like flirting with women here, he's doing this, and he's like, but he's still staying true to his objective career-wise, where he has a cause he believes in, and he's trying to be undercover to do that. All of these layers to Kaji kind of resonate around the idea that like he has already experienced similar pain to all these other adult characters, and like Asuka and Shinji as well, but he's just come to terms with it, and he's found a solution to it. And a great example of this is in that scene with Misato. What does he do? He just stays true to his emotions. He's like, Misato, I still have affections for you. Despite you doing this, despite you doing that, I love the woman you are now, no matter how flawed you may be. Like and then the best scene that encapsulates Kaji as the most complete character is not even this. That's a good scene. It adds to my interpretation. But one of my favorite scenes in the anime is when Shinji is just meandering around, not wanting to get into his Eva again, and all of a sudden he pops in on Kaji watering his fucking plants. And it's like, in the background, there's literal destruction and chaos happening where he can die in any second, and he's just watering his plants right in front of him. He's like, oh, you don't want to get in the Eva? Well, I mean, that's your decision, bro. But like, like if we, if like, and then even with the conversation with Sato, he's like, hey, if like I die, tell, water my plants for me, please. What this tells me is like, he's fine. He is content with the idea of death because he's not leaving behind any grievances. He's filled that hole in his heart. And he's able to look to the future. He's able to plant seeds for the future, symbolic of the plants he's doing. When you see all these adults, what are they? They're thinking of the past. They're stuck in the past. They can't possibly think of planting seeds for future generations because everything about them, their present, is rooted in the past. Whereas Kaji now is thinking, Misato, I look at you as you are now, as flawed as you are. Like, let's do something now for the future. When I'm making this call to you in my finale, I'm thinking about the future. Like, I'm going to say the words I couldn't back then, because back then I was a flawed individual and I was lonely in my own way. But now I'm a different man. Shinji, water these plants for me because they're part of my symbolic idea of like, I want to foster something for the future that is sort of separate from me, but also part of me, and that it can learn from me, right? Like, he is so different than every other adults, which is also the opposite of what I was saying earlier. They can't possibly be a good example for the kids because the kids are the ones that are standing before the adults as the front line for humanity, right? Whereas Kaji sacrifices himself for the betterment of humanity to give Misato the information. There's so much symbolic shit in Kaji that just shows him as he is like the only character in the show that is just whole. And he's not whole because of a human instrumentality project. He's whole because he looked at the root of his ailments, of his loneliness, right? And he tackled it head on, and now he's true to himself. He's great because of all the things I said.
Nice. Yeah, you made me appreciate him a bit more. That's cool. I like that. I guess one thing. Let's do it. I guess something more I got out of it. Just when instrumentality was happening, and Fuyutsuki had the line where it's like, "Did you see Yui too, Gendo?" And then Rei turns into Yui, and then you also have with Maya, I think, or it's the girl, where she's Ritsuko. Appears. Did you have a read on that, or is this just because I have an understanding of it based on other discussions? I just want to make sure.
I'm sorry. It's when Ritsuko. Sorry.
So Ritsuko appeared to when Rei was turning everybody into the goop.
Yes.
Orange,
okay. Before that,
everyone
when
was
Ritsuko
seeing visions
comes
of the people that they love. Basically, I was wondering, just
seeing visions of the people they loved, and how does Ritsuko come into this?
So because that's who Maya, the girl who of the bridge crew. She saw Ray turned into Ritsuko for her, and then she gooped. Well, she turned into
for me I was just thinking, like Ritsuko, because I remember the scene of them where they're talking about she's trying to crack a code or something, and Ritsuko's like, oh, let me help you out, and she's like, oh, you're amazing. Like, to me, it just like Ritsuko is like not only sort of probably like a just like this comforting mentor for her, like someone she admires and wants to be like, but also like a huge comfort for her. But maybe there could be something a little bit also romantic about that, because there was her hands were kind of sliding over her, so maybe she might even have some romantic feelings for Ritsuko. That's also what I thought.
Yes.
But also obviously it's almost inconclusive. But if someone said she probably has romantic feelings for Ritsuko, I'd be like, yeah, I can see that.
Because basically, when I'm pretty sure it's going on in that whole sequence is basically like Rei is appearing as because basically what she's trying to do is to getting everyone to break down their own AT fields so that she can turn them into the goop LCL to make for the human instrumentality project, and put all their souls into one so that they can merge into the one being. So what I'm pretty sure she's doing is by turning into the people that they love, basically. she's getting them to like open their hearts to bring down their AT fields, basically.
Yes.
So I just wanted to, so like Fuyutsuki sees Yui and he asks like, did you see Yui as well, Gendo? Because he knows he loved Yui and he knows Gendo obviously loved Yui. So with it's like, yeah, she pretty clearly loved Ritsuko. Had a crush on her rather.
Okay, yeah.
And I think because the guy in the glasses who was on the bridge too, he pretty clearly loved Misato because I'm pretty sure
he literally said even before that he says like if I'm dying with you then that's a fine death by me.
Yes, there. But mostly because there's one iffy part in that sequence because the guy with the medium length hair, there's just a bunch of rays and he's screaming. Basically I want to bring it up because when you think about compare those two other ones, it's like okay, yeah.
So Ray hates that.
Yeah, or he's a narcissist, or he either doesn't have anyone personally he would let into his heart. I thought the idea of the narcissist was interesting because that would mean that Ray can't turn into him because he would know that that's not him, right? Like it's that. So I don't know, but we don't exactly get enough of his personality to make a reading like that. But I just remember apparently someone has had the interpretation that it was like, oh, so he wants a harem of Rays, and it's like no, they're just forcibly breaking down his AT field because he doesn't really have anyone who he would let into his heart like that.
That's I didn't think about that hard, but that is. Yeah, that scene is very. It does stand out. It does. Yeah. It does.
Yeah. That's what's cool about Eva because there's a scene that's like 4 seconds long and just gives you a lot to think about this character that no one thinks about really because he's just like, oh yeah, he's doing air guitar while sitting in his chair. I guess like we don't get much to this character, but we do get that, and it's something. It's interesting. So yeah, I just thought about that. And I just want to make that clear because again, there's so much stuff in Ava that just throws at you, and there's so much to that you can easily just miss, or yeah, like you said, not because obviously it's like, what are you gonna think about this minor character who you really I don't even remember his name, or everything else going on in End of Ava, which is a lot, and it's a lot more interesting. So I just thought about that one. It's like I should throw that in there just because add something. Oh yeah, this was a funny one because they were talking about when was it? I think it was it was also during that sequence, but some of the dialogue was very it must be a broader Japanese idea, but they mentioned like they basically define the heart as it's defined in Bleach, about the idea of the formless thing in between people that is their bonds, basically. At least in the translation I read. So I was just noted that as far as like, oh, we read Bleach on this very podcast. So like seeing them literally just describe the heart in a movie that came out like 5 years before Bleach started. It's like, oh, this must be a broader Japanese concept or something that we were largely introduced through Bleach stating it outright. But I can only think of it. End of Eva being the only other thing that I can think of that has brought it up. So, yeah. I'm just going through my notes and seeing if I have anything interesting to mention.
Yeah, and I really do think that is that is like the most interesting thematic layer of all of Evangelion, is the idea that like, sure, we try our damnedest to connect with others, but there's always so many unknowns. Like, will this last? Like, when are they going to do this? When are they going to betray me? That's one big thing with Shinji, is like he's always betrayed at the end of the day. Anytime he forms any kind of semblance of a connection. Kaoru being a very great example. Yes. The one that kind of got closest to the essence of Shinji, but immediately Shinji had to kill.
He comes in, he gives Shinji everything he wants and everything he needs right now, but then, I'm an angel, you have to kill me or I guess the world will be destroyed or whatever. Right? And it's like, well, and then that's literally like we see how Shinji state afterwards in End of Eva, he literally doesn't care if he dies. Like, the soldiers are like, oh, I guess we gotta kill the third child. Sorry, kid, it's nothing personal. And they fucking, and then it's before Misato comes to save him. But, right, like, he doesn't react at all, like, he's just ruined because he had to kill Kaoru, right? So, yeah.
Just like, the fundamental idea of, like, we need this because we don't want to essentially do the hard part, and that is, like, try our damnedest to navigate that unknown where it's like, we want to say something to these people, but we're afraid of what the response will be. We're afraid of being told, you actually don't matter to me enough to deal with what you're talking about, or you never matter to me as much at all, or yada. Like, that's a fundamental problem a lot of these characters have. Shinji especially, right, is like he's dealing with the surface level individuals he's talking to. He's not talking to. He's avoiding confronting them as they are in a holistic sense. Asuka being a great example. He literally heard her talking about her mother, and he does his damnedest to not ever tread that ground that they have. One of their only common grounds, other than being Eva pilots, emotionally, is the fact that the abandonment of her mother, and then for Shinji, it's his father. Both of them have like parental issues that kind of plague their mind, right? But Shinji avoids what could very well like mend their relationship into a more amicable one, right? So yeah, all this stuff like that whole main theme kind of being a universal thing in Eva, I really, really appreciate, and I like how it's handled for the most part too. And I guess I can talk this because this segues right into like my grievances with episode 25 and 26, which is the fact that like all of the stuff that I'm relaying right now, I didn't need episode 25 and 26 to spoon feed me to tell you what I'm telling you. I'd already come to these sort of conclusions thematically by the halfway point in Eva, right? So whenever I get to episode 25 and 26, and I understand we've talked a little bit off air. Off air just sounds weird to say. I'm talking like we have like a big fucking show or like news broadcast. When we're not recording, we've talked, in weeks past, you were like, well, there were some like production issues, like they wanted to do like the end of Ava kind of immediately, or like they had a story in mind, but they couldn't do it at the time, so they had to kind of like do something to end Ava, do something original.
See, it's funny. I'm not totally sure myself, and I was like, I should rewatch the 3-hour Steve M video on Hideaki Anno's full like history of body of work, basically up to the rebuilds, pretty much, including like Love and Pop and Nadia and him working with on Ghibli films and his whole fucking career basically. And he didn't really talk about anything about production wise about not much about Ava specifically like towards the end, at least not to the detail that I'd heard about, which makes me think was I right, because it just, I don't know, because it's like they did end of the Evangelion with the last 2 episodes, which at the time he was satisfied, but also like he was pretty depressed at the time in Hideo, and obviously there was other creatives involved with Evangelion as well. Like Anno didn't write most. I don't know how many scripts he wrote, but he didn't write most of them. Anyway, my point being is that like, so my understanding was that like the production was having problems during especially towards the end, which is, so there's more usages of the longer still frames and doing more with less, basically, and then you have the last episodes, which are lots of reused footage and new voice lines, and then they did Death and Rebirth, which was half recap movie, half the first half of End of Evangelion, and then they did End of Evangelion. So it's like the first movie helped get them the funding for the second one, basically, because Eva was fucking huge. Like that was one thing that I definitely got out of rewatching the Steve M video, is like it was literally created to be sort of like something more niche. But it ended up getting like mainstream popular, like in Japan domestically. Like there was also some controversy around it, so that probably helped. But it got like the last episodes got like what 10% ratings in Japan or something like that. Like way more than a typical like seasonal kind of like a show of its nature, basically. So it continues to be popular. But anyway, I got off topic there. Sorry.
No, you're good. I mean, well, I might get more off topic with this question. I'm sorry in advance, but you said there were some controversies too. What was like one of the controversies surrounding?
Well, I mean, imagine watching Evangelion for almost half a year at this point, and then it ends with those 2 episodes, and like it's not a conclusion or in the same way that we did get for End of Eva, right? I believe there's some rumors about like them including some of the death threats in End of Eva with some of because there's the sequences where there's a bunch of text flashing on screen. I don't know if that's, I don't think that, it's Steve M said that's not true, but like so that was part of it, and I don't know if there's any quite like objection to the content, because there really isn't anything in Ava that was like completely out of the norm for like what you could see in other anime, I guess. Not that people sexuality of underage characters, it's like anime, like it's not, so nothing like that, but probably more production stuff, and also just like especially like when it is the idea that he had a message towards like otaku and stuff. So if otaku are getting negative messages towards them out of it and being angry about that, like that, there were death threats sent into Gainax and to the staff involved. So it's not like there was nothing. People were angry, people got heated, but it is it. Yeah. Anyway, I don't know the full details, but I also can't say go watch this 3-hour video on it. So sorry, I can't give you a better answer.
No, you're good. You're good. I get the gist anyway. It's fine. And I guess talking about that, I mean, I've essentially said it without saying it at this point. Final 2 episodes, I still really don't care for. The end of Eva as a conclusion is just way better for obvious reasons. I really like the end of Eva. But the last 2 episodes, it's conveying. I understand the point of it. It's supposed to be the human instrumentality project from within Shinji, just what he's going through in the beginning stages of it, yada, yada, yada. But like everything conveyed while everyone's kind of one with him. Again, I like the idea, but even the way the idea is conveyed in Eva is a lot better and a lot more engaging to watch and just a lot less boring. Whereas the last 2 episodes, everything being conveyed, I already got episodes and episodes ago, and all the still imagery, like all, like you said, all the samey stuff, all of Shinji just sitting there. It's just boring. I was just bored final 2 episodes. So that much hasn't changed from my experience.
No, see, for me, I wasn't quite bored, but I definitely liked it, like, notably less. To the point that, like, I hadn't really thought this before, but if I ever rewatch... Well, okay, that's the problem. When I rewatch it again, it's going to be in Japanese. But if I ever watch it for a 6th time, I'm probably just going to skip episodes 25 and 26.
Yeah.
Because obviously when I watch it again, it's like, well, I want to know what they're saying in Japanese. Like one teeny, I mean, it's not really getting anything new out of it, but in like episode 2, they divide up the chores, and you can get just from the context that like, oh, Shinji's, in Misato's comments that like, yeah, Shinji's doing more chores, but the subtitles I read didn't actually translate the calendar, that you could actually see that it has the Mi symbol for Misato, but it has the she symbol for Shinji way more, and I just noticed that because I could read the kana, and I was like, oh yeah, I could see specifically cool. What days that Shinji has way more chores than Misato. So, which again they just say, but it was just a little like, oh, I can read that, so I can see exactly what I'm supposed to be seeing, basically. But anyway, so I definitely want to talk about Asuka, see if we have more to say about Asuka, because she's like the most important character. I feel like we haven't really gone into any. But I brought up Kaoru first, and I was wondering if you have any reads on him, because he has so little screen time. It's fair if
it's almost as if it's
mostly for Shinji. But
it's almost as if Kaoru is like looking into the future through, like, he knows what's going to happen through Shinji, like, because he always like, you're very interesting, Shinji, you're very interesting, and like, there's not much more interesting about Shinji than there is other people, because he is fundamentally the same as every other human. So what makes him interesting, and something that I thought of while I was watching the end of Eva, I was like, oh, because he is like the arbiter of this new thing, which is the human instrument. It's happening through him, basically, right? So maybe that's what Kaoru was seeing at that point. But obviously Shinji doesn't know anything about any of this, right? Kaoru does, right? And so when Kaoru says that, Shinji translates it completely different and ends up being exactly what he wants, but it's not what he wants. It's not what he needs, because it's not real, because Kaoru in some sense is not real, because Kaoru is an angel, not a human, right? Even though, which is another layer, because almost fundamentally they're the same, right? So all this stuff, but it's like they have to be at odds,
the fact that they both have this greater purpose, right? Kaoru as an angel has to do this thing, Shinji as a human fighting for humanity has to do this thing, and yet really neither of them want to do that thing. Right?
At the very least, what Kaoru was saying, he probably believed in that, like, oh, Shinji, I want to interact with you more, I think you're interesting. So at least on like this level they can connect to in terms of like in terms of what would you say, connection with another, like they have like they have something together, but because of that like 1 iota % difference, they have to be at odds, and Shinji has to kill Kaoru, even though like there's another like 99% where they share only really similarities with each other, right? Like even Kaoru pilots 01 just in his own unique way, Or was it
or
zero
02?
Zero
mean,
two,
yeah.
02. Like even Kaoru was like piloting an Eva basically, but it's a little bit different.
Yes.
But like it's fundamentally they're doing the same thing. They're piloting the Eva, right? So yeah, there's some cool shit there with the symbolism that I appreciate for sure.
Yeah. Well, so I'm not totally clear on the logistics of his character basically, because I mentioned how there's kind of an arc of the angel sort of like understanding humanity, and then boom, Kaoru. I don't actually know for sure where he comes from, because he's a pawn of Sele. Like they're he's talking with Sele, like he has the audio only bricks around him when he's talking with them. So it's like here's an angel in cahoots with the guys who are like Sele is behind the scenes of Nerve with and like fighting the angels, and yet here's an angel on their side.
But then there's also the other layer of like he talks to Ray. He's like, "Oh, I'm like you," so he was also created by maybe them using either Lilith or Adam. Yeah.
I only just realized
like an artificially created angel, basically. By
his design is evocative of Ray. He's supposed to be a artificial. He's like He's like I should have thought about that. He's like Ray, so he's they created him, but he's also an angel, I guess, maybe, or
that's what I took from it anyway.
Maybe, yeah. Okay, gotcha. I should, but anyway, so, but I guess more in regards to his character, that this is another thing I got that I don't think I got before, and just, or at least didn't really pay attention to it before, because so I guess one other like lore detail that I haven't brought up, they bring it up briefly, the Dead Sea Scrolls. Which in reality, it's basically they found a bunch of jars at the Dead Sea that had what I believe is still the oldest known texts, Christian texts, basically. That were literally like hidden away in jars and not found until centuries later. They basically they were found around this period, but conspiracy theories came about because some of them were like not released to the public, so people thought that there was some sensitive information in there, which in reality they have actually since been released, and it's really that they were just so illegible that they couldn't be deciphered really, and they were still trying to work on it for a few years. But back in the 90s, or at least in the case of Evangelion, they drew from those conspiracy theories, and the Dead Sea Scrolls basically have like instructions on how to do all the crazy fucked up shit that they want to do with human instrumentality and angels, and it's and also like it's a script to follow regarding like when 01 gets the S2 engine in episode 19, they're talking about how it's, because I think there's a line between Fuyusi and Gendo where they're talking about how it's like, they can't stop the clock, but they can advance it on their own basically. Like they're going against the script and moving things forward, which is why Sailor is like, hold up, everything was going fine and you're doing things differently, and that's where their distrust for him really starts to come up. So basically Kaoru, like, oh yeah, he wants to die because like he's trapped in this structure because he's working with Sailor. He knows things to come, which might come from the Dead Sea Scrolls, but he's also not really willing or able to do anything about it, so he just like the freedom he seeks is in dying basically, so which of course Shinji wants to live, and that's what ultimately separates them. So
yes.
Yeah. Which again, most of that is stated, but I just I didn't really dwell on it before, I don't think. So yeah. But yeah, I guess one tease about Kaoru is that because obviously Japan everywhere does character popularity polls, and Kaoru, I believe, became one of the more popular characters after the Rebuild films. So look forward to more of him.
Okay. No,
yeah,
I'm excited for sure.
Yeah. But anyway, Asuka, we have not really talked about Asuka very much.
Asuka she's an interesting character for sure. She obviously has a similar issue as everyone does. Something that, as for Shinji, what he needed is someone to and I didn't really get too extensive even with Shinji, like even his peers that he has aren't real peers. By that I mean like his classmates that are friends, they can't console him on the same level like a friend can console you, because they live in different worlds. He's an Eva pilot, and the one who could possibly console him, one is like Rei is like not an actual human being in a real sense, and then the other one is Asuka, who has her own AT field up, so to speak, that disables them from resonating from human to human. But in Asuka's case, because of her trauma, right? She feels like she has to be useful. Useful to people, useful to humanity, and this all is rooted in, oh, I wasn't useful to my mom, therefore she wanted to kill me. That's why if I am not useful, I will die. I will cease to exist. And if not in a literal sense, I might as well be dead because no one will care about me. Just like my mommy, which is exactly why she's essentially starving herself and killing herself near the end of the series, because she's like, well, I've lost my usefulness. I wasn't able to be, that savior of humanity. Therefore, I might as well be dead because I'm dead to them. And in a sense, I mean, it's true. Like they're already finding a replacement. So it's not like she's even that far off the mark, which is the most depressing part of this is like, yeah, I mean, that's true. And even them finding her, it almost seems like they're trying to find her out of obligation to kind of like cover up any loose tracks, not because they care about Asuka, and her integrity, both mentally and physically. It's just because like, well, we got to take care of her. We got to tie this loose end, right? So again, just like Shinji, it's not like it's not her fault. She's 14. She needs help. Yeah. No one has that to offer her. Yeah. So she's So it's not that I don't find her disinteresting at all. And as a matter of fact, actually, I'll say this much: the end of Eva, I am excited to see more of her in the rebuilds, because the stuff she gets in the end of Eva is fascinating. The fact that she has the last line, and I want to talk about like your interpretation of that final scene. And I have also a question too, and I don't know if there's theories as to surrounding it, but that has also amplified my appreciation for the character of Asuka. That stuff at the end of the end of Eva, the stuff with her and Shinji. I guess I'll just go ahead and dive into it, just because I've already kind of talked about my feelings of her in the show. But so when Shinji is like but before he does, Shinji's talking to his mom. It's a really cool conversation where he's like, "This is great and all, and like I'm understanding a lot of what I didn't before." And I know you as you are right now, Mother, but like this comfort is like, I still want, no matter how hard it was, I want to go back, because those iotas of happiness I had, it felt real in a sense that this doesn't feel. So despite it being mostly pain and only an iota of it being pleasurable, I want to go back. And immediately he returns to like quote unquote reality in the desecration of the post Third Impact, and he immediately decides to strangle Asuka. I took that as like a way of like of thinking like, okay, I need to decipher whether this is real, right? Yeah. I need to, and knowing what we knew about and just again, this is like a lot of this is, I just watched this movie, so a lot of my thoughts are kind of jumbled, so work with me here, guys. I'm going to figure it out eventually in the midst of this conversation.
You're good.
My whole thought about this is like, it's not that like, oh, I understand, so I'm going to come back and now it's like me and Asuka, or like even my view of Asuka is going to be completely changed. It's like, no, when he comes back, he still hates everything. He hates it so much. He hates his position. He hates Asuka because she can't be nice to him, because she's not trying to understand him. And because of that, him vice versa. So immediately when he looks at her, he's back in reality. It's like, what else is he going to do but lash out? Because he's still angry. Like, he still hasn't had what he needs. Like, he still hasn't talked to Asuka about anything. So he's angry. He doesn't like her. He doesn't like that she's not nice to her. Mm-hmm. Like, he literally had that dream sequence where she was like, no, I'm not going to accept you, Like, he chose to go back to this point, but that doesn't mean like he's all of a sudden going to be a changed man. He's just acknowledged the fact that he wants to ride with it and slowly but surely change himself. Mm-hmm. But that slight little bit of like that iota of something where it's just that hand on his face, like, hey, Shinji, I'm alive, I'm here. Like, I'm with you right now, is like, that kind of like breaks down his anger, and he's like, and it's like, oh, maybe it's leading somewhere. But then she says, disgusting. I have a little bit of an interpretation of that, but it's like, I don't know if it's, I haven't settled on anything yet. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, so I definitely agree in that, Shinji is looking for reality. And so, the first thing he does is Like, well, because even obviously, like, well, we've seen him strangle Asuka before. It was during that instrumentality sequence, like when they're arguing in the kitchen area. Like he strangles her, right? So he's repeating that irreality, I guess, and then finding that it is real when she does something that he can't possibly foresee, right? That to hit like because it's they talk about how like what they're actually talking to is like their images of the others in their minds, basically. I think that comes up in like the last two episodes for sure.
It does.
Yeah. But I don't know if it was brought up in End of Eva as well, right? So Asuka stroking his face is like she's doing something that like Asuka would never do, and it's like, oh yeah, this is reality. And well, before we get there, I also want to because like you mentioned, I think you mentioned it, but yeah, just thinking about Asuka, the fact that like what broke Shinji away from reality was positive, right? Like because we see it in episode 26, like it's a self-affirmation. It's like, and then we also and then he wants to exist in the world even if it's painful. He just deciding to exist, deciding to that maybe he can love himself, and that's what breaks him free. But then his first reaction to the world is negative. Asuka broke out first, and I'm pretty sure in there, you mentioned the line. It's like she hates Shinji. She hates him so much, like she'd rather die than be with him or around him. And that like breaks. I think that breaks her out of instrumentality because it's like I don't want to be. She wants to be away from Shinji so much that she leaves the human goop basically. But then so it's something negative that pulls her out of it. But which is it's so absurd whenever they talk about it like that. But anyway, but then her first interaction with the world is positive as she strokes Shinji's face, and I never really noticed that inverse before. But as for like why she calls him disgusting, so I guess so the meta reason is actually because like Anno wasn't the staff of the wasn't sure what to have her say to end off the movie, so Anno just asked the voice actress. And she just said, I guess Asuka would say, like, you're disgusting. And so that was, like, her read of the character. And, because it's like, Shinji, and it's like, when you think about it, it's like, he sees the one, the only other human, possibly. And, his first reaction is violence. Like, he is still Shinji. And, and so she gives him both, like,
she might have.
She's still Asuka. Yes,
she's still Asuka with that final line, but she has a little bit of like there is like something there that shows potential, like where they're where they can understand each other on a more fundamental level.
Yes, she gives him something that he wants, and then follows it with that which he also he might have wanted to stay in instrumentality to avoid. Right? He gets
exactly.
Where of course for Asuka it's like. Too. She's trying. I guess like why does Asuka stroke his face in the first place? I guess because it makes sense for Shinji's character. Like why like the idea of him receiving that is interesting, but also like Asuka just going from like I don't want to ever see you again, but then she ends up on this like this devoid Earth. And the first person she does see again, like literally, like if you're the last man, even if you were the last man on Earth, right? Like there's that line, and then that's what happens. Is it's her and Shinji. And when he's not deserving of it, you could argue like going back to deserving and stuff, but she
perhaps it's because Shinji is different now in the fact that where it was always him being at the whims of other people, being passive, being defenseless, like Asuka would bombard him with stuff and like he would only argue superficially. Now here it's like all his raw anger for her and all his vitriol. He's showing himself in his totality right here. So she acknowledges that. Maybe that's kind of like where I'm going with that. But maybe I'm it could be a better interpretation, but that's what I'm going to go with right now.
I haven't really thought about how I haven't been thinking about this, so I'm glad to be digging into it really.
I think it's super important because another question I have is like are they like the new Adam and Eve? Like is there no one else?
No, that's so I think again there's multiple ways to read it because it leaves so much out there, and especially again thinking about like in imagining End of Eva as the actual End of Eva, or like incorporating the rebuilds basically. But because I believe the version I have has a subtitle track that also points to a bunch of translation notes, and I believe they mention how one thing that I think about is how basically because like Asuka and Shinji come out of the ocean. It's also possible that eventually other people could come out of the ocean, and maybe humanity could, in some form can continue, or maybe they're the only humans in the world that like sort of self-actualize and decide that they don't want to exist in with everybody else, basically. So it's like those are two alternate readings, basically, and I think it just kind of depends on like how positively you want End of Eva to be. I guess because it's for that, like, yeah, can humanity, because again, it's like if Shinji decides that he wants to change, but then the ultimate message is like, it's still the world still sucks, like, and that he's still Shinji, she's still Asuka, right? Like, change, because it doesn't show us any of that after, right? Like, okay, we do get the one after we bit. I'm sure you've seen the poster, but just sent it, just to it's this is the last image we see of the movie, is like them standing on the beach, right? Because obviously this would have to take place after the last shot we see of the movie, because it's like, well, yeah, Shinji got up, Asuka sat up, and Rei's head is still there, right? So that's like that's this image is the end of Eva in a sense, not in the more abstract sense. I just mean literally, it's like this is the last chronological image we've seen from this movie, basically. It's really, it's like, yeah, that's it. We don't know what happens to humanity. We don't know what happens to Earth. So it's I feel like, yeah, your interpretation kind of depends on like what you get out of End of It, because yeah, some people do read into it positively and value that self-actualization and change that Shinji does make, and because if he can change slowly but surely, perhaps the world can change from this state slowly but surely. Like that makes sense to me. But I also like the Rebuild movies, so I would like to incorporate those, but I can't talk about them, so ignore me.
No.
So yeah. I'm trying to think of, was there anything else about Asuka? Oh yeah, so one thing I mentioned to you before is so there's two details that I got from like Twitter, I think, before rewatching it again, but after rewatching it in 2018, and one of them, again, I just hadn't really noticed it, but Asuka, when she wears that slightly oversized yellow shirt, she stole it from Misato, and it sort of fits her, like, she wants to be more adult, she wants to be more mature, so she's taking Misato's clothes, and it's like both her desire to be more adult, but it's also revealing her childishness, because she's literally too small to fit into this shirt, right? And she's not able to be like Misato, obviously. The other detail was someone commented on Ritsuko's occasionally lacking makeup, and they were arguing that it was because it had to do with Gendo, basically, and there were times where Gendo was out of town, but she was at work still wearing her makeup, so the times I noticed her not wearing makeup were just like, she was like hanging out with, like, the first time was like in episode 2 or 3, no, I think it was 3, she was at Misato's place with Shinji, and she didn't have her makeup on, so I don't quite agree with that reading.
Maybe the only times where she's not wearing makeup are when she's outside of Nerve, and because she's in Nerve, she always has a chance to see Gendo. Maybe that's why. You could
that's why I do, but I do think there were times where she was at Nerve, but they knew Gendo wasn't there, basically, because there was times where he just like fucked off, like to Antarctica or doing other stuff, and I mean, maybe she thought, maybe I don't know, maybe she was, I feel like she's the most informed character generally, but maybe I'd have to think about it more, but I did want to mention that I didn't, I guess, thoroughly dissect it, but I did think about it, But and I don't know, one thing I feel like I maybe dismissed a bit too hard about Asuka before is because, like, she's really toxic to Shinji. I think the one scene in particular, because, like, obviously, shippers, romance, like, I understand, like, liking their dynamic and wanting to see, like, a more positive interaction or, romance, shipping the characters together. Like, I have no issue with that whatsoever. But, like, like, the scene in particular I remember was, like, she's like, kiss me. And he's like, what? And she's like, kiss me. And they kiss, and then they break away, and she's like, I need mouthwash. Like, what the? That's just kind of fucking rude. Because it's like, but she, there's, especially towards the end, there's definitely some scenes where it's like, oh no, she does have interest in Shinji. She just buries it under that toxicity and her competitiveness because of who she is. And I feel like I just dismissed that angle before because I was focusing more on the toxicity and not like, oh no,
not the why.
She's
and the
a
toxicity,
child,
basically.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So I just wanted to, because for sure, because obviously Rei also gets in. I mean, that's, and the end of Eva revolves around that in a sense of Rei following what Shinji wants, because she like that's why she betrays Gendo, because like at the start of the series she has Gendo's glasses and like she slaps Shinji on the stairs, because he's fucking talking shit about Gendo, but then like by the end of the series it's like, no, she cares about Shinji more. She's willing to betray Gendo for Shinji. So that's way more clear. But with Asuka,
she's and in a way too, I love that you mentioned that, because I love like the gradual, like she's breaking the glasses more and more, and then finally the last time you see them, they're completely shattered, because at that point she's like shattered the imagery Gendo implanted in her of him, which is that that like he is like the saving grace of humanity basically, and like he's there for her, when in reality like it's like no. In essence, I'm gonna defer more to Shinji, because I am, in some way I'm part of Yui, and the current Gendo is someone that Yui would not, accept.
Yes.
Because of what the answer that she had in that flashback, of course. But just like that idea, like what Shinji says, like connecting it to like, you could look at that as like Rei more and more as the series goes on, actually agreeing with what Shinji said. By the end of her breaking the symbolically like breaking the grip Gendo has over her, right? I thought was really cool. Yeah. I'm surprised I forgot to mention that, because that actually I did take note of that.
Yeah. And yeah, I don't know. I also just like obviously it going tits up and just everything being really fucked up and sad is. But I don't know. I like how the series it's kind of able to do both really well. Like I like the darker later episodes, but I also just like the earlier stuff where it's just more lighthearted.
They're
fucking
dancing and playing Twister to try to synchronize better. Hell yeah, good shit.
Great episode. Or I was even just thinking about yeah. Go ahead.
I was like, then that crescendos into the fight sequence. It's like, da na 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 na.
Yeah,
with like, it's good
what a iconic. But I was also just, especially for some reason, just thinking about Rei and the three pilots, is when the power's out and they have to like sneak back into the base, and just like the interactions between the three of them, and just like. Or just the moments of like Asuka taking command, but not really, like Rei just sort of going by her own pace, and she's just like because she understands like nerve and stuff the best, and because she's been there the longest, and just I don't know, it's just they're fun. They can be fun characters, even though they can also be So no, I just don't want to forget.
Shinji, by the way, a lot. He's just like screaming.
God, oh my God, Megumi Ogata is possibly I think she's my favorite voice actress. Not for Shinji, but Shinji's up there. Shinji's like those fucking screams are blood curdling. Like especially like the one you mentioned at the end of the first half of End of Eva, where it's just like, oh fuck. Yeah, she's great. So did you have any takeaways from some of like the more tertiary characters like Toji or Kensuke? Like they're because they kind of vanished by the end for understandable reasons. But
I mean, really, I don't really have a lot of. I don't think I have a lot of unique observations for them. I didn't spend too much time pondering on them. Obviously,
that's fair.
The one guy, what's his name? He pilots.
Toji. Yeah,
Toji. He pilots. Was it 03 or 04? It's
I think it was Unit 3, because he was he was the fourth child of Unit 3.
Yes. Yeah, 30. Yeah,
yes.
Okay. And like, his sort of, he has like essentially a whole episode dedicated to him, like, dealing with the idea of like he's going to be in the same position Shinji is, and
that he criticized Shinji for.
But then when he's in the Ava, when he sees how much damage psychologically it's doing to Shinji being out here, and then knowing what happened with his sister and stuff too, there's a lot of weight on his shoulders even before he enters the Ava and like gets the full brunt of what is expected. He's like already, he just has only grievances with this, sort of like Shinji, and then all of a sudden he gets way more he alienates himself a lot more. Like he immediately becomes a lot more lonely, where he's not really communicating much with his friend. He's not he like his crush is sending him, or the girl that's crushing on him is sending him so many signals, and like he can't even, they're just bouncing off him because his mind is not there. He's not in her reality anymore. He's now in an isolated reality. I thought that stuff was really, really cool. But I don't really have much more to say on it, because once he survives, I'm pretty sure, right? Does he not survive the destruction of his Ava?
But we just never see. He's dead in the sense that we never see him again.
Yes.
But he is alive, and he is in a nerve hospital. No, I think we see it. We do see him wake up in the hospital bed, I think
we do. I remember that.
And then we never see him again.
Which is interesting. Yeah, it's very, very interesting decision. I don't know if that was just limitations on like they had to like they had more important things, or that was like intentional. But I'm not sure really how I feel about that, because I was really appreciating his stuff, and then it kind of almost ends inconclusive. But maybe that's intentional. Whereas like, but I don't know. Because I really liked what they were doing with Toji, and he's the only side character that I really like had any real attachment for, and he just kind of disappears.
Yeah, no, that's fair, because it's like he ends up just being more deferent to Shinji in that like it's less about him and his stuff get cuts off, where it's focused on Shinji and his friction with Nerve over like Gendo literally telling him to kill his friend and not telling him that what he's doing. Even that episode is kind of interesting because like I'm pretty sure the story doesn't like vocally say Toji's the pilot. It just implies it through the editing and the way the characters are acting, to the point that it's very, very obvious, but it works because Shinji doesn't know. So it's never like, again, which goes back to like the way the shows matches Shinji's perspective. So it works in that way, but it also ends up like, he just gets, I guess
to try and be as good faith as possible, I could say maybe the idea of the story is like loosely saying at this point, like their friendship is already dead because Shinji can never communicate with Toji again, given that like he essentially feels responsible for almost killing him basically. And like, he's like, I can't ever face this guy again. But I don't even think we get dialogue of that. Like, I think it's better served to like have some dialogue of Shinji saying like, I can't face him anymore, and then just don't see Toji, but instead like I'm here having to like try and pick apart. Maybe that's what it means. See, this is one of an example of like a story beat that would be better served to just do a little bit more explaining, right? And then the other stuff that I was saying, where it's like 25 and 26 don't explain as much. So that, I don't know. I guess I could see that, but I find it hard to even say what I just said is like a valid interpretation, given that it's almost too inconclusive to say for sure. Yeah.
I don't even think he really has a lot of focus in the last two episodes, where it focuses on a number of the cast members, but I don't remember him really showing up either, except obviously in the congratulations scene, but that doesn't count. So the character I got a bit more out of was actually the glasses friend Kensuke, so basically one thing brought up in the Steve M video is how there's a lot of, I guess, what you could argue as like military fetishism in that the way the military is presented a lot, and but how it's actually described. So this actually goes back. It's actually a similar connection, to Naruto, in the sense of with Naruto, Kishimoto grew up with these older people around him who knew war. But he didn't, and so he wrote this story where this child experiences war for the first time after being raised by these adults who'd already experienced it. And so Eva, like you were talking earlier about how it's like, none of these adults know what it's like to pilot an Eva, and they haven't really been through a war, at least a war in the sense of, at least not in the traditional sense. They did go through the apocalypse, which was very bad for everyone, but we don't really get a lot of details of that. But so you could argue there's still this difference between like the adults have gone through something serious, like Misato in particular, where we see her like PTSD, like we see her after Second Impact and she's really fucked up, but then she, got better and became a mostly functioning adult, partly functioning adult, somewhat an adult. But one quote from the video is about how like even though like they are, because Hideo Kano can draw some really detailed machines, and one of the first images from the series is all the tanks lined up, and then you have the seagull on the barrel of the tank gun, which I think about those shots, but there's a line where it's like, I don't think it's from Ano, but it's from one of the other staff members talking about how it's like they appreciate the machinery and aesthetic, but they don't really want to see them being used for war. And so I was thinking about how with Kensuke, like he's playing soldier when Shinji finds him in episode 4, right? Like, and he he does have a line where it's like it's just for fun, because he's a military otaku, but he also wants to be. He says he envies Shinji. He wants to pilot Eva, and in those last episodes, he literally goes to Misato's door. Please let me pilot Eva. Like he wants to do. Like he's once more after Asuka, he's the character in the series who wants to pilot Eva the most. But I definitely think it's meant to be sort of again, in comparison to Shinji, he's meant to be seen as childish for it. and like because he doesn't understand like emotionally like, what he's signing up for basically. So I paid a bit of attention to that because I was like, oh yeah, I never really thought of this character in that way in regards to like the messaging of the story. So yeah.
I maybe I just thought less of it because I caught that too because I mean there's a clear dichotomy being taken place whereas like Toji's actually chosen but he wants nothing to do with it where it's like last guy's like please let me pilot is because he doesn't understand because Toji's experienced things that his sister especially where he knows more of the reality where and then Glasses guy he is even in the Ava a lot of like what he was thinking about and what he was talking about is like how cool everything was, whereas Toji is like looking more at partly to do with like his interaction with Shinji already. He's got more of a personal attachment to Shinji given his animosity toward him, and he was more. Whereas so Gasuke is more focused on the Ava and Toji was more focused on Shinji himself, the person piloting the Ava, and that's where like the distinction takes place. So it's like, they're completely separate. They're completely opposite. Where it's like the one chosen knows the gravity of the choice, whereas the guy who is not chosen doesn't understand at all what it means to pilot an Ava, and is only, like you said, fetishizing it. It's cool. Yeah.
Oh boy. Anyway, I'm trying to think if I have any. I guess Ritsuko. I feel like a lot of with her, like it's very clear with what the deal with her character is. So I'm not sure if I have any more to say. But,
I honestly don't either. I don't think
I like her. She's voiced by Robin, so
she
I'll
is.
Take it.
Yes. I'm surprised we haven't mentioned that until now. She is. Clearly,
there's only so much. There's the only other. I believe Ray's voice actress actually voices Rebecca in the Dressrosa arc. So there's a little other One Piece crossover.
I can kind of see that actually.
Yeah. Well, the funny enough, I don't remember that being specifically because of Ray. I remember because there's also like in an anime called Karakuri Circus. There's a silver-haired main character called Shirogane who's voiced by Ray's voice actress. And the one of the male leads is a big buff guy who shares a voice actors with Kairos from Dressrosa. So I remember that of like you have a muscular dude and a lady character being voiced by they're like the same voice actor pair basically, and that stuck with me. I guess when thinking about Rebecca, though I do also she voices Ray too. Megumi Hayashibara, that's her name. I remember that. I think that's her name. I hope that's her name.
Well, we'll see.
It's her name. Okay, I didn't fuck that one up. All right. I feel like we're winding down the discussion. I
don't really have. I said all literally everything I had in mind. I am so glad this conversation went well. I took no notes. I took no notes before I went in here, but I feel like I've covered everything I wanted to. Like I don't have that feeling where I'm like, man, I feel like I'm forgetting something important. I think I did a good job as someone who didn't take any notes in talking about this. So I'm proud of myself. Pat myself on the back. I think this is a good discussion. I think people who actually watch this that are fans of Ava. I know Fig. I hope you watched till the end of it. I was literally on stream yesterday. I had a random stream, and he didn't know that I was watching Ava. In conjunction with you to do this pod, like Ava's like his favorite anime, so he's really excited for this. So I hope he gets it to the end. Fig, me and Fig have been like online friends for like years. So
okay, and so I know Said EV guy who watches my streams, he mentioned like yesterday when I was streaming, it's like, oh yeah, I finished and Ava, when are you guys gonna? I said it'll probably the episode will probably be out in around a week because we're recording it tomorrow. And then Radman also mentioned that he wants to rewatch Ava and listen to the discussion as well. So it's like after so many people being like, oh yeah, you guys talk about Ava, I'll rewatch Ava. I couldn't just go like, I'm learning Japanese, I can't watch any anime. No, I'm just gonna fuck it. I'll just watch Ava. It's not a big deal. It was a good time. I'm glad for that discussion. I'm glad, and it's just really cool. I don't know. I guess like I understand people if like because you mentioned like, oh, I don't want to, I probably don't have that much to add, which is like it's been a well discussed anime for 30 years. That's like it's been read a bunch of different ways. I think that's fair. But like just emotionally like hearing someone who didn't like Ava rewatch it and be like, yeah, that was pretty cool. I had a good time, and being able to get enthused and talk, like I think that's cool, even if
for
quote unquote like and there's ways, and I'm not super into that Ava Discord. Like I haven't been in the trenches, learning every tidbit. So there's things that I don't know and I don't understand, and or ways I like you help me appreciate some things better. So yeah, I'll take it. And I'd be curious. If some people listen to this and like I didn't get those things out of when or even though I've been in the Ava trenches for so long, like I'll be like, hey, that makes me feel good. So because and then even if you like you maybe heard it before, but like hearing it again makes you like, yeah, I haven't thought about that in a minute or whatever. That said, one angle I do, I guess I want to do more research on before I talk about it. I kind of talked about this with you before, with Christianity and Gnosticism in anime, because so my friend who he liked Ava well before he watched it. He just found the idea of it interesting, but he never actually watched it. And he watched. He did eventually said fuck it and watched it. And guess what? Unsurprisingly, he liked it. But he told me, I guess, a video from apparently someone who's kind of a bigot. Unfortunately, I don't remember the name of the video or the person, but it was mostly a video talking about Gnosticism, and then at the end bring up Evangelion. And basically, the idea with Gnosticism is that everything used to be one, and it split off into different things. And there's a lot of like ideas, like one idea that it shares with Evangelion that it doesn't share with Christianity is that like the seeing the Father in a more like antagonistic light, because like in Gnosticism God is a manipulator, and where in Christianity God is more like he loves you, which is also so I want to do a research project in this because I want to sort of see the line from like why is it that so many anime refer to Christian symbols and imagery but seem to be ideologically more drawing from like Gnosticism basically, and so Ava's really interesting in that way, not only because of, like you have the father antagonism thing, but also like the fact that human instrumentality is about merging all of humanity, which is kind of a flawed read of Gnosticism, because like the idea with Gnosticism is like everything was one originally, and so like they're trying to like return to that past in a sense by making everyone one again, but really Gnosticism is about recognizing, like it's less about merging to one and more about recognizing that we were one, and that being that part of like why you treat other people nicely basically. The other thing about it is that what this video is arguing about is that, like, or at least what my friend was thinking about, was because like the other aspect of Gnosticism is that because we were all one thing, we all sort of like in our spiritual like memory, we already understand Gnosticism like intuitively. And he found that interesting. And what he found interesting about that is because basically he thinks Evangelion might be one of the most Gnostic works ever made, because if the staff of Evangelion being from Japan and not having Christian ideas beaten into them made an anime that is evoking Christian imagery but ideologically is more Gnostic than Christian, then it might be like argued as a very Gnostic work, because Gnosis is the process of like that intuitive spiritual understanding of Gnosticism without like reading it basically. So it was just an interesting way to think about Ava that I hadn't heard about before, but I'd have to do research into it. So, and I feel like, I could also talk about these other stories that I want, like with like Bleach being another one where it uses Christian imagery but again has that Gnostic like manipulator god angle, or Shin Megami Tensei is another one where Yahweh or how is also he's a lawful evil or manipulator god by the alignment system in the games. So it's like it's a thing that I think about, and but I haven't really I want to dig into it myself one day. So I just thought I'd bring it up because it also ties to Evangelion and is neat to think about. So yeah. And especially like the idea of like, they want to just return to the beginning and sort of return to baby in a sense. It's like, I mean, it's still there, but it's also like counter to Gnosticism. So I thought it was neat. Yeah. But I do think that about does it. So, any final closing thoughts? Aside, I mean, I feel like I guess you've already said enough, or a few rather. So
the only thing, again, I really enjoyed Ava this time around. I am actually a fan now. So congratulations to all of humanity. HotBoySpicy is a fan of
Ava fan plus one. There's a counter somewhere that just went up.
Hell yeah. And hopefully I have just as much appreciation for at least one of the rebuilds like you do, because you said the fourth one.
Because the first three are good, but then the fourth one, like, I just hope I'm not hyping it up too much, also, because it's really contentious and a lot of people don't like it, probably, and because like for me it gave me this emotional attachment to the characters that I've now carried with me back to the original, where some people already had that emotional attachment, so it's not like adding it, and if anything, it's like it's removing interpretations by giving new context that you have to incorporate, which could also add more interpretations, but it's like or like they already had the answer. Mumi from the Weep Crew puts it as like I think is like End of Eva was out for like years before the rebuilds, like over a decade, and so people came to their own answers to the questions raised by Evangelion, and then rebuilds coming in with new answers. And so it's like, well, if you don't agree, then it's like you're not gonna. Because some people was on stream and someone's like, Anno should never touch Evangelion again in a negative context, and I'm like, I love the rebuild movies. Particularly the fourth one. What do you want me to do? Like,
dude, that reminds me so much, because I'm literally playing Final Fantasy VII Rebirth right now. That reminds me of people that are Final Fantasy VII original purists and hate that like remake and Rebirth. Like the new trilogy is basically like a soft sequel, while also being like a remake of FF7. It is just narratively, it is like a soft sequel. Yeah, and people hate that. People hate that it's not just a 1-to-1, like FF7 remake, just in. Yeah, with a little bit of different combat and
which is fair in that they're fucking marketing it like it is. Which like I've seen like, oh, play Final Fantasy VII. It's just like a rebirth or remake remaster, as though it's just a remaster of Final Fantasy VII. When no, it's a fucking sequel. So it's
in one sense they are remaking Final Fantasy VII because they're redoing some shit. So.
Right. It's not the same as playing Last of Us Remastered, and it's just or Last of Us Part 1, which is the remastered version of the original it's a remake of the original Last of Us with some gameplay changes. That's a little bit like or like Persona 3 Reloaded, where it's like it's I don't know. It's a little different when it's a soft sequel, right? We will cover the rebuild movies eventually. It won't be next time. Next time, again, just to trying something different with the In the Den. We're going to be going through something neither of us have seen or really know anything about. So it was a Netflix animated show, unfortunately canceled after one, or at least not being renewed for a second season, which I guess what canceled means. Scavenger's Reign. All I heard about it was like, oh, good animated cartoon, which, because I don't know, cartoons just have such a different lineage from anime. Where I've honestly like I mean there are good cartoons, don't get me wrong, but like anime has evolved in so many like broad directions that I just feel like I'm way more likely to enjoy an anime that I watch a lot, or find a new favorite. Like I feel like if I watch every anime and every cartoon, I'd probably walk away with more favorite anime, and not just because there's more anime. But maybe that just appealed to me more. But hey, it's a relevant reason cartoon. People seem to like it. So yeah, we'll check it out. Scavenger's Reign. Hope we'll see. Again, that more. It's also partly for that going through something. One, a Western thing, and two, something that neither of us have any experience with before. So hopefully we like it, or at least have something interesting to say about it. So
hell yeah.
Yeah.
Can't wait. Good stuff.
Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the discussion. We'll probably comment or respond to any comments on the rebuilds episode, which I don't know when we're gonna do that. Maybe sooner, maybe later. I have no idea. So yeah, thanks all, and have a good one.
See you guys. Bye bye.